Last week we talked about how Christ died to tear the veil and put his Spirit inside of us. I explained how great that Spirit in us is. He's the source of all life. He's the power behind all of creation. If you took all of the love in the world and you added it up and put it into one being, that would be less than the love that Christ has in him. And that's the Spirit that lives in us. He's in every single person who accepts him. It doesn't matter if it's their first day in Christianity or their 90th year in Christianity. They are united with God. There's a lot to discover on your first day, obviously, and hopefully by your 90th year you've discovered that wisdom and that power of God in your life. But they have the same union with God. How wonderful and powerful of a thought that is. And today, I want to take that idea a step further, the idea of Christ in us, and use it maybe a slightly different angle to it. Having God's Spirit in us, it not only means that we're united with him, it also means that we're united with each other. Every believer shares the same Holy Spirit. It's an odd and profound thought, and it has a lot of implications to it. I don't know if you noticed, but in the first Bible reading, it kept saying that believers share the same Spirit. In fact, in 13 verses, the 13 that we read, it used that terminology 10 times. It said, but the same Spirit, the same Lord, the same God, through the Spirit, by means of the same Spirit, by the same Spirit, by the one Spirit. All of these are a work of the one and the same Spirit. For we were all baptized by one Spirit, and we were all given one Spirit to drink. When the Bible says that we are of the same Spirit, it's not just speaking figuratively, as in saying believers are united with a common purpose or vision. It's true that often we have the same mind and same heart and vision and purpose, but more importantly, we are united to his actual Spirit, united through his actual Spirit. There's a real connection. It's not just an alignment of thoughts. In John chapter 17, Jesus talks about how he will be sending the Holy Spirit. Then he prays this final prayer, one of the last prayers he prays before going to the cross. And he prays, you can sit down, by the way, sorry. I called her up and then realized she's still sitting there. So this is one of the last prayers he prayed before going to the cross. He says, Holy Father, you have given me your name. Now protect them by the power of your name, so that they will be united just as we are. I'm not only praying for these disciples, but I'm also praying for anyone who will ever believe in me through their message. I pray that they will all be one, just as you and I are one, as you are in me, Father, and I am in you. May they be in us, so that the world will believe you sent me. If we read that whole passage, I think it paints an even clearer picture. But I won't read the whole Bible to you today. Jesus said, and he's saying in the same way that I am in God, they will be one with us, and they will be one with each other. Biblically speaking, who you are is united to God. You're still you, but your spirit and his spirit are connected. And the person next to you is connected to him in the same way. So both of you are also connected through his presence. Now, because we're one in spirit, we're also called to cultivate a culture of unity and love. And that's really what I want us to focus on today. What does unity practically look like to the life of the believer? And how do we cultivate that unity in our communities? In order to cultivate a culture of unity, I think we have to first see each other through the eyes of grace. We have to see each other through the eyes of God, how he looks at us. Pastor John Lynch wrote a book one time called The Cure. In the book, he paints a picture of the path of the believer. In the analogy, John starts walking on his journey of faith, and eventually he runs into a fork in the road. And one path says pleasing, the other path says trusting. The first path, the pleasing path, is a path of performance. It's focused on achieving success. It's being seen as good enough by others. It's a place of trying to become accepted by God and the church through works. The people on this path don't fully understand the gospel. The path of performance is often driven by fear, shame, and comparison. In the book, John initially takes that path, the path of performance. And as he's walking down, he finds a hotel and he goes inside. Everyone in there is wearing a mask, like a masquerade mask. He asks the whole crowd, "How are you doing? How's everyone doing? It's great to be here." They all kind of look at him puzzled, and they say, "Just fine. We're just fine. Great. Everything's great, brother." And as if they're reading a cue card. Then the hostess asks him, "How are you doing?" He starts to speak openly and honestly, sharing his struggles and everything he had been through on his journey. But she and the people around her don't like him doing that. They don't like his answer. So he starts to feel their judgmental looks, and then they stop him mid-sentence, putting a finger over his lip and hand him a mask. He doesn't want to wear this mask, but he puts it on and he wears it because he wants to be accepted by the people. So he puts it up to his face and they ask him again, "How are you doing?" He says, "I'm fine, just fine, thank you." When really inside, behind the mask, he's dying inside. But he's in a place of performance, a place that values performance. This is not the place of grace and love. It's the place of fear and fear of rejection and fear of judgment. If I'm good enough, if I'm talented enough, if I'm beautiful enough, if I'm put together enough, then I'll be loved and accepted. So show no flaws. Here, we learn to hide in shame, keeping everything in the dark. Don't show them your real thoughts and your real struggles. Here, we learn how to smile, put on a mask, and perform. We're told by the people in the building of performance that if we're exposed, then we'll be rejected. So vulnerability goes out the window. I'm not going to share my struggles with anyone. The mask is going to stay on. The problem with that is that the only part of us that gets love when we're wearing a mask is the part that we're showing them. The only part of us that gets love when we're wearing that mask is the part that we're showing them. Only the mask gets love. Everyone in the building loves our mask, but we never get to be seen. So we never get to be loved. The building on this first path is not a community that loves each other. It's a community that affirms each other's masks. And this is not the type of community that God has called believers to. That's not the unity that He died to give us. Don't worry, John Lynch eventually got out of that building and got tired of it. He gets back from the path, and he finds that second path, the path of trusting God's grace. Then he keeps walking down and he sees a building, and this building has a sign over it that says, "Living out of who God says you are." Living out of who God says you are. He walks in and the hostess comes up to him and says, "Welcome. How are you doing?" He holds up his mask and he says, "I'm fine, just fine." She pauses for a second with a skeptical look, and the people around her start looking like that as well. In that pause, he recalls the judgment from the place he came from. and all of the struggle he went through to hide his pain. And he was sick of it. He threw his mask down in frustration and said, "I'm done." And he yelled out to the room, "I'm not fine. I'm tired, I'm confused, I'm angry, I'm afraid, I'm upset, I'm sad, I'm depressed. I've gone through so much." And he pours out everything that he's been struggling with in his faith and in his life. After pouring his heart out, he hears a voice from the crowd yell back, "Is that it? I got stuff going on too." And then the hostess looks at him and says, "I think what he's trying to say is, you're welcome here." See, when the gospel is not at the core of the community, everything becomes about works. And masks go up, no one is actually known, so no one is truly loved by the community, no one is truly accepted by the community. The only part that is accepted is their mask. But the church is a place where we're meant to be seen. We're meant to be seen and loved. Their mask in the church shouldn't be loved, or wanted, but the people should be. We encourage them to take the mask down to be seen. I just finished reading a book called Imagine Heaven. I just spoke about it a little bit last week. It has testimonies in it of people who passed away and they went to heaven and then they were resuscitated, so they came back and shared what they saw. Some of the stories said that in heaven we will fully know each other, almost like people are see-through. You can see into them and just see everything about them in one moment. And not only are they fully seen, but they're fully accepted and loved and wanted and desired. They are a part of the community. And it also said that in heaven we'll understand the unity that we share with God and the unity that we share with one another in Christ. In a grace-filled, gospel-centered environment, people are not afraid to be exposed. They start longing to be fully known because they know that the more they reveal, the more unconditional love and grace they'll receive, and the deeper they'll be in the community. Experiencing love and grace and being fully seen brings them to a deeper level of security. I think this is what the community in heaven is going to be like. Fully seen, fully loved, and we'll feel a deep sense of unity with each other. And I think that's what we should aim for here in our communities on earth. People are always hiding from the light. They're hiding behind masks. They only do that, though, because they're afraid of being punished or rejected or being exposed. Christ has called us to foster communities where people who came in with masks feel safe to take them off, which means that it has to be a place of no judgment, a place of unconditional love. A couple of years ago, I had a friend who was caught up in a legal situation. And she was having to go to court for some illegal things she had done from the years before she became a strong Christian. And I remember sitting at the table with her as she confessed everything to me. And she was confessing to me and some friends. The whole time she was sharing, I was just filled with so much love and joy in the Spirit. And the more she shared, the more grace I felt for her, and the more compassion and love I felt for her. It was a weird feeling to have while somebody's confessing. I'm just smiling the whole time. I'm sure she was like, "Why are you smiling at me?" But I was just full of what the Spirit was feeling. And when she finished sharing, I imagine there was a vulnerable moment of feeling like she was maybe exposed. She had exposed everything, and she was waiting to see how we would respond. And all I could say was, "You just didn't know who you were. That's all. If you knew who you were in Christ back then, and who God was for you, then you wouldn't have done that stuff. And that's not who you are now either. So shame off of you, guilt off of you. Let's just love on you. God's got you now. You're good." And my friends responded similarly. This is how God responds to us. When someone opens up like that, they're putting themselves out there. They're putting themselves into the hands of the community, and they're vulnerable. If me and my friends responded with guilt, shame, and condemnation to my friend, then not only would we be representing God poorly, we would be also making it so that she wanted to close up and not share anything in the future again. It would close off community and vulnerability. There would be a mask on from then on until she learned to trust us again and we showed more grace. So that's a practical example of a grace-filled community responding in a moment when somebody's sharing about their past. But we also have to have that same grace-filledness, I don't know what the word is, when it comes to people's current struggles. And that can be a little harder to navigate. We are supposed to help people, so it's understandable that it's hard to do that. We want to help them step into their identity. We want to help them walk into the Spirit. We want to help them walk into the truth so that they can produce the fruit of looking like Jesus. The gospel empowers us and empowers them to live a life that looks like Jesus. When people are diving into sin or doing stuff that's just a little bit off the wall, we have to really know how the gospel applies to them and how to help them in love without getting judgmental or offended through the process. One thing that's helped me in this is knowing that my experience of learning how conflict arises. In conflict management, they say that there's a couple levels of conflict. The first level is, I love you, but I don't like what you're doing. Two separate things. I love you, I don't like what you're doing. And then the second level is, you are what you're doing, and I hate you for it. And we have to bring it back down to level one. We have to be able to see through people's actions, to see the heart of who they really are. See past what they're doing and see who they really are and speak into that, call that out. Because that's the way God sees them. It's not, like I said, not always easy to do, especially if we don't know who God is for us first. Which, this is why I put this letter in this sermon that I wrote. I want to share it because I think it's important that we know who God is for us first. Now, I wrote this letter to a friend's son a while back for his birthday. His dad had asked a handful of people in his son's life to write some wisdom and encouragement for life. So this is a piece of the letter. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. But as I pray it, it's a little longer, so just maybe take it in prayerfully for yourself. Let's do it. It says, you might not always perceive it, but this is who you always are. This is who God always is for you. This is always the truth, even in the moments when you don't feel it or even act like it. You are deeply and completely loved, valued, desired, of endless worth, continually thought about, wanted, fought for, even unto Jesus' death on the cross. You're chosen, you're planned for, you're defended, cared for, clean, holy, righteous, absolutely forgiven. You are a new creation. You're fully united and one with Christ, fully seen and known and accepted. You are more than acceptable in Him. You are not behind, not outside, not flawed, not damaged goods, but royalty, complete, smiled upon, enjoyed, adored, bragged on, God's pride and joy, honored, esteemed, celebrated, held, hugged, greatly favored, and a co-heir with Christ. You are full of authority, never alone, never separated from God, never abandoned, never rejected, never neglected, never punished, but secure, safe, belonging, given complete access. You are more than measuring up, more than enough in Christ, You're praised, believed, appreciated, heard, understood, cried with, comforted, guarded, guided, provided for, strengthened, emboldened, empowered, given wisdom, given gifts, given dreams, and led into all truth. Nothing needs to be added to who you are for any of these qualities. The list above is who you are and who God is for you. It's the truth about you on your worst day and your best day and every day in between. Because identity is never about what you can do. It's about how God made you and who He is for you. There is nothing that you can do to make yourself more. There's nothing you can do to make yourself less. There's nothing that anybody else can do to change who you are. A lot of identities you had from before you were born, and the rest you received when you accepted Jesus. I know that was a long letter, but I hope in reading it, it illustrated that we first have to know those words for ourselves before we start treating other people that way. The letter is not just true for me, but it's also true for the person sitting next to me. That's the truth about them on days when their actions look just like Jesus and days when their actions look the furthest from Jesus. Now, this is already, I've been talking about building unity in communities. This is already very much a united, loving, and caring, and even vulnerable community. But I think that there's always room to grow in it a little bit deeper. I know I will always be growing in God's love and grace and unity. Understanding what it is, rather. Our world, it needs to experience that level of being seen and loved. Our world and our country and communities and even families, they need more unity. They need to experience it and know it. There's so much conflict and division out there. So much hiding who we are. So cultivating a culture of unity might seem impossible at times. But as we get to know God's Spirit a little bit more and what He is like, I think it becomes more natural. I'm learning that humility in prayer really helps in knowing the deeper revelation of what Jesus is like for me. We are all loved and valued by Him. We are all a part of His family. We are empowered by His Spirit to love and to care for each other as brothers and sisters. Let's create communities where everyone feels accepted and loved, where we can share our struggles and support each other on our journeys of faith. Let's keep building communities that reflect our unity with Jesus, the Holy Spirit. Amen?
Amen.